Recording in progress.
Hello everyone, and welcome. I hope you're all having a great day. My name is Scott Price, and I'm a professor of piano and piano pedagogy at the University of South Carolina in the United States of America. And I would love to thank the World Piano Teachers Association for allowing me to be here with you today at the World Piano Conference. And I would love to thank all of you for allowing me to spend some of your precious time and introducing you to some of my favorite people in the whole world, and how they're able to realize their potential and achieve success with just a little bit of a different approach. So this workshop is entitled Autism and Piano Study Inside the Piano Lesson. And what I would like to do to you today is just introduce you to one of my students and see how he achieves his potential, and then move on to talking a little bit about autism, what it is, and how I need to reframe my teaching to meet the needs of my students. And then take you through what a typical lesson looks like with a few video clips and explain some of the processes that we go through to help our students be successful. So to start off, I'd like to introduce you to Chase and have you just listen to Chase do a little improvisation. I'm a big believer in improvisation and in using it as a teaching tool to introduce concepts. And you'll hear Chase doing a little bit of contrary motion. He likes chromatic scales. And then you'll hear him modulate to the relative key. So he's just a wonderful student. And I was a little worried for him there as he started to go down the chromatic scale. I didn't know where he was going to end up, but you can hear that he knew exactly where he was going, and he ended up in the relative key. So Chase is autistic. He is what we would call on the lower end of the spectrum, level 2 to level 3, needing substantive support. He also has developmental delays that affect his speech, his intellectual processes, his fine and gross motor skills, and he also has something called apraxia of speech, which affects the way he's able to process words and then communicate. So he has a lot of challenges, but music is one of his splinter skills, and he's a whiz at improvisation. He started out in the first book of a beginning piano method, and then he progressed all the way to level 8 of the Royal Conservatory of Music in Canada and their celebration series. So he was playing some pretty advanced repertoire. And he also improvised for everyone during the recitals. So now I would like for you to just hear a little conversation that I have with Chase, and you can hear the extent of his challenges. And this conversation is where we practice social skills, we practice communication skills, and then it's also just a chance for him to decompress from everything that's going on in his day, to relax, to get used to me and the setting, and to get ready for the piano lesson. Hi, Chase.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Doing great.
What did you do today?
I went to school,
Oh, what did you do at school?
to the library.
A library. Did you get some books?
We did one person chairs and table.
Oh, some chairs and table.
We could tricycle and we did banking floors.
Oh, okay. Well, what did you do this weekend?
This weekend, at the Hungry Harry's Pizza this weekend with mom and dad.
You had pizza.
Yes.
What kind of pizza did you have?
Cheese.
Cheese pizza. What else did you have?
Cheese bread.
Cheese bread. And what else?
Sunday, we made that regular taco grill yesterday.
Oh, what did you have there?
I ate chicken fries.
Chicken and fries, huh? Did you have any dessert?
No.
No, just chicken and fries?
Just chicken fries only.
Okay.
Guess what? I'm gonna have fun at fair on Thursday.
You're gonna have fun at the fair on Thursday. All right, what is your favorite thing at the fair?
Dragon roller coaster.
A dragon roller coaster. Well, I hope you have lots of fun.
I'm gonna have fun at Cabin Mountains. We're doing Friday trip.
Oh, you're going to the cabin in the mountains on Friday? Well, you're gonna be a busy guy. Well, have fun, Chase.
Have fun.
All right, bye-bye. So you can see that Chase has a lot of challenges there, but he's a very happy young man. He's very hardworking. He is dedicated and 100% committed to his music making. Next, I'd like to show you an improvisation that he did at one of our recitals. Now, these are not prepared beforehand, although we do a lot of similar type things in the lesson to make sure that the student knows the types of skills they'll need to demonstrate in the lesson and how to put an improvisation together. But at the lesson, at the recital, I just turn to the student and say, okay, your pieces are done, time to improvise, and then they just go. Now, Chase, because of his fine and gross motor skill delays, he has trouble tying his shoes because of the complexity of the movements. He also takes karate, and he has trouble tying his belt because of the hand-over-hand movements that need to be done in sequence. It's very complex for him. But as you watch this improvisation, you're going to see that at the keyboard, a lot of these problems go away. So some well-deserved applause. So if you hadn't seen that video of Chase talking, you would probably just think this is a pretty good average, little above average student who's doing great work in his piano playing and in his recitals and in his repertoire. But the way he gets there is very different from the traditional student. And although Chase may never be able to verbalize to me things like harmony, meter, rhythm, melodic construction, phrasing, dynamics, he can show me through doing that he understands all of those concepts and that he's learned how to do them. So next, I'd like to talk a little bit about autism and then lead into the way that a student like Chase is able to achieve his potential. So I'm sure you're all very familiar with the term autism. Many of you may be teaching students who are on the spectrum or have other neurodiversities or disabilities as well. And so autism is a developmental disorder, and we talk about it as a spectrum disorder, meaning that everyone who has autism falls somewhere on the spectrum. On one side, this individual may be what we call high functioning, and I know I hate those terms, high functioning and low functioning, but they're necessary in a certain respect. Personally, I prefer the word differences because that puts us all on an even playing field. And then we start thinking of everyone as being part of and not less than. And in my class, I want everyone to be a part of this wonderful thing that we are able to do as musicians. So on one side of the spectrum, someone may be high functioning or level 1. You may not know that they have autism. On the other side of the spectrum, someone may be low functioning or level 3, meaning they need 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week support. They may be nonverbal, they may have other physical challenges, they may have related disabilities that require extra assistance. And then everyone else falls somewhere on that spectrum. So there's a saying that if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, because everyone is different and they all provide a wonderful perspective and a unique outlook on how they approach music learning that sometimes can teach me what is not working real well in my own piano teaching and how I need to change. So as we go through the diagnostic criteria for determining if someone has autism, they are very long, they're very detailed, and a little complex for a layperson like me who's reading through those criteria. So what I like to do is sort of put those into 3 categories, which will help me reframe my teaching to meet the needs of my students. So the first of those is a deficit or a difference, I prefer the word difference, in social behavior. The second is a difference in social communication. And the third is a difference in imaginative thought. So what do all of those mean? Well, for a difference in social communication, if we were to meet each other in person at the conference, we would know how close to stand to each other. We would know how much eye contact to make and when to break that eye contact. We would know when to extend a hand for a handshake, how long to hold the hand, how hard to squeeze, and when to let go of the hand. We would also know through a lot of unspoken cues when we were to end that social interaction, or how to involve another person, or how to end that social interaction in a way that is considered polite. So we have learned all of those things, maybe with a little coaching from our parents or family members or a teacher, but for the most part through observation. And then we have decoded those behaviors and what they mean. Then we have learned to put them into action, how to transfer them to other situations, and to create variations on them. And so that's an amazing amount of communication that we're doing before we've even used vocabulary. So our students with autism may not be able to observe those behaviors, decode them, put them into action, transfer them to another situation, and create variations on them. So for them to be successful in the lesson, I need to teach them all of the behaviors that they need to learn to approach the lesson and to navigate the learning process. So just an example of some of that might be, let's say it's 3:55 in the afternoon and my student, like Chase, is ready for his lesson at 4 o'clock. He's excited about the music. He's ready to show me what he can do. He wants to get to work. So at 3:55, I may hear bang, bang, bang on the door pretty insistently because he wants to get in to do his lesson. So what I need to do is open the door and say, "Hi, Chase. I'm so glad to see you today, and I know you're going to do a great job in your lesson. But you know what? Joey is still in here for his lesson, and I need to see him until 4 o'clock. So can you please wait quietly in the hallway with Mommy? And then when it is 4 o'clock, I will open the door. I will say, 'Hi, Chase. Can you say hello back to me?' Then I will invite you into my office. I will show you where to put your coat and your book bag. I will help you get your books ready. I will show you where to place them on the piano. And then can you sit on the bench quietly and wait for me to get ready? And then when I'm ready, I will say, 'Are you ready?' And then we can start the lesson. Can you do that for me?" "Great, thank you." And then I close the door and I commence with finishing Joey's lesson. So I promised 4 o'clock. So at 4 o'clock, I'd better open that door and do all of the things that I said. But the point is that if I teach all of these behaviors, my young student who has a real need to know what's coming next and what's going to happen is able to approach the lesson. He knows everything that he needs to do so that anxiety won't surface, frustration won't surface, and then these things won't progress to the point where they become a behavioral outburst or a behavioral shutdown. And those can happen to any degree. So what I need to do is to just make sure that I don't assume that my student knows things, and that I teach everything my student needs to know to be able to approach the lesson and to be able to navigate the learning process. So that's very different from a traditional student where we rightfully assume that they know all these behaviors before they get to the lesson. I can't do that with my students with autism. Things go much more smoothly and easily for them if we teach these behaviors. So number 2, a difference in social communication. Well, I can assume that my traditional students already approach the lesson with a vocabulary and that they are schooled in carrying on conversations and things. But my student with autism may be nonverbal, or they may be minimally verbal. They may have auditory processing issues, or they may have developmental delays, which means that they don't have much of a vocabulary, or their vocabulary is very limited. And I also need to remember that just because my student may be physically and chronologically 16 years old doesn't mean that they are 16 years old in their emotional development or their intellectual development or the development of their gross and fine motor skills. So I need to be sure that I know this information before the lesson starts, and then I need to make sure that I teach the meanings of the words that I'm going to use and the meanings of the words in context of music study. So I never make an assumption. Excuse me. Because when I use the word key in the context of music study, this is probably what my student is thinking about, or the house key or the car key. And so I need to make sure to teach them explicitly that we use this word to talk about a part of the piano as well. So I need to teach the meaning of the words and the meanings of the words in context.
Recording in progress.
My student may also have auditory processing issues, which means that they may need time to hear the sounds that I'm making with my mouth, and then they need time to recognize those sounds as a word, time to process what that word means and to assign a value to it, and then to put that word into action. So sometimes they just need more time. And often, if I'm having trouble communicating with a student, I can just simply say, do you need more time? And they say yes or no, or they shake their head or nod their head. And then we're able to learn the pacing that a student would need in their lesson to be successful. So that's differences in social communication, differences in imaginative thought. So if you're like me, we can all ask this question of ourselves: how much of our teaching involves imagery, analogy, and metaphor? Probably a very high percentage. Well, a student with autism may not understand the connection between that imagery, analogy, or metaphor and what they need to do at the keyboard. So what that means is that I need to present the information in a very literal, specific, and concise way to them. And I'll give you an example of that. Often, if we're talking about artistry and music study, I may say, okay, look at measures 8 through 12. Those measures need to grow. My traditional student just needed a reminder that they have to create some sort of a volume crescendo there in the music. But if you think about somebody who thinks in a very literal, specific way, I just said the most ridiculous thing possible. Because grass grows, animals grow, people grow, music can't grow. And a very bright student might say, well, you told me last week that when I play a key on the piano, it makes a sound, and that sound starts to decay and get quieter, so how can it grow? And then that student may also say, I don't think that's very good teaching. And you know what? They're right. So for my student with autism, I may need to say, look at measure 8. Can you touch the first note and play it very gently? Can you use a little less gently for the second note? For the third note, play it strong, the fourth note stronger, and the fifth note very, very strong. That way they know in very literal, specific terms how to touch the keys in a succession of movements that are progressively stronger that then create the crescendo that we talk about. It's very different from traditional teaching. Now, that doesn't mean that anybody shouldn't use analogy, metaphor, and imagery, I just always make sure to start with the literal and specific definition first, and then explain sometimes we use these words to discuss it. So if I change my teaching and teach all the behaviors that my students need to know to approach and navigate the lesson, we're going to do a lot better. If I'm very careful about my social communication and I teach the meanings of the words and the meanings of the words that I'm using in context, and perhaps give my student a little bit more time to communicate, things are going to be much more smooth. And if I use literal, specific, and concise instruction in a step-by-step manner, things are going to go much more smoothly for my students. So basically what I learned very early on was that most of my traditional teaching process was meaningless, irrelevant, and counterproductive. Unless I allowed my students to teach me how to communicate in these other ways and in this other process, and then those things could be productive, meaningful, and relevant for them. So I do often like to say in my classes and in my workshops that the students who come into my studio and sit on the piano bench are undercover geniuses. They really are brilliant. And I am the student, they are the teacher. Of course, I don't teach them that, but they are the teacher, and every time they come into my studio, I know that I'm going to get a master class in teaching, and it's like being a student all over again and learning how to serve my students in a much better way so that they can achieve their potential. So, with all that said, that's a lot of talking, right? So with all of that said, what does an average lesson look like in my studio? Well, that's what I'd like to show you next through a series of video clips. So, before any lesson, no matter how tired I am or how frustrated with other things that are happening in the day, I always try to remember that I need to put on what I like to call my perpetual smile, which is the warm smile with the face and the eyes and the cheeks and the mouth, and that I always need to pay attention to my student, and then I want to soften my voice and always be nurturing and calm and welcoming in everything that I say. Because often our students may be looking to us for nonverbal communication tools, cues and tools, but if I lapse and if they see me looking at something like this or looking at them like this, they may misinterpret that as them having done something wrong. And then, of course, they don't want to do it again, and that can also translate into guilt and shame as well. So I always want to make sure that I always have the perpetual smile, and even if things go awry, there's always another try, there's always another day, there's always another lesson. So when my students are coming for their lessons, usually it's in the afternoon for me, and I have to remember that they are exhausted. They have been trying as hard as they can all day, and they're just overwhelmed with everything in their environment. They may also have not slept well. Maybe they have sleep regulation issues, so maybe they've been up for 2 days or 3 days or had very little sleep. Perhaps they have dietary concerns, and so maybe their nutrition is off. Perhaps they're taking some medication and the medication is wearing off and it's not yet time for the next dosage. So a lot of things can affect their mood and their ability to function within a lesson, and I need to be aware of those. They have also had to deal with school all day. They've had to deal with the car, a disruption in their schedule. They have also had to deal with changes of temperature between the school, the car, outside, and the new building. All of the sounds of the street, all of the other people, dealing with the different sounds within the building, getting through the elevator and getting up to my office. So by the time they get there, they're just overwhelmed. They're hyper aware of things. They're oversensitized to things. So I need to make sure that I give a few minutes at the beginning of the lesson to just help them calm down, to desensitize, to get used to me, to get used to the environment, and to start remembering all of the things that they need to put into action to be successful in the lesson. And then once I get them settled, we have a little chat. And that chat is just also to give them time to relax, but it's also a time to practice social communication, social behaviors, to get them ready for the different tasks they will need to do in the lesson. And then it's also a chance for me to gauge their level of physical energy, their state of emotional awareness, their state of intellectual awareness at that moment. And then I can adjust my teaching and my pacing and my process to meet the needs of the student. And then I found very, very early on that one of the key things that I need to do when beginning the lesson is to ask for consent. If I say, "Are you ready?" almost always they say yes. If they say no, I need to determine if they need more time to get ready or if this is an avoidance issue. Sometimes they may need more time, and they're very honest about that. If it's an avoidance issue, that's where the parents can come in handy. They are my best and first resource, my best support system in learning how to teach and approach their children. So they can often step in and say, no, I think we already got a drink. I think we already visited the bathroom, so it's time to get ready. And then we begin the lesson. And one of the first thing I do is give them the routine for the lesson. Students with autism have a real need to know what's coming next. They also have a real talent for lists, routines, and schedules. So if I just give them the routine for the lesson, then we are ready to go and they will always know what happens next. So that routine could be as simple as, first we are going to do right hand, left hand, then we're going to do finger numbers, then we'll do key names, and then we'll do lesson book, and then we'll do performance book, then we will do improvisation, and then it will be time to say goodbye. Are you ready? Thank you for being ready. Can we start with right hand, left hand? And then we begin the process. And if the student has given consent and they have learned the process for the lesson, things are going to go a lot more smoothly, and there won't be a chance for frustration, anxiety, and behavioral outbursts or behavioral shutdowns. They will be able to manage their own internal world a lot better in the piano lesson. So let's just take a look at a routine that's pretty standard for my students. This young man is Aaron. He was about 7 years old when he was studying at this time. Aaron is what we would call level 3 or low functioning on the autism spectrum. He also has fine and gross motor skill delays. He has intellectual and other developmental delays, and he is nonverbal as well. What you're going to see in this routine is that almost nothing has to do with music making. At this point in his instruction, he's learning all of the necessary behaviors to get ready to begin learning how to make music.
Hi, Aaron. Good. That was great waving. Good for you. Are you ready to play the piano? Aaron, look at me. Are you ready to play the piano? Hands down. We're going to work on, pay attention. We're going to work on eyes looking at the keyboard. We are going to work on taking turns. We're going to work on your fingers. We're going to work on playing black keys and playing white keys. Are you ready? Are you ready? Aaron, look at me. Look at me, Aaron. Aaron, look at me. I'm here. Eyes looking at the keyboard. You can play.
So he's a wonderful young man. But again, very little of that had to do with making music. It's just getting him centered and learning the steps that he needs to do to approach the learning process. Now, you've also seen me forcing him to make eye contact and also touching him a lot. And I know we're touch phobic these days with a lot of our students, but please remember that there is a parent in the lesson at all times. They know their child the best. They know what best works for their children in the learning process. And often this touching has been discussed with the parents so they know why it's being done. And they've also educated me on what works best for their child. So in Aaron's case, this is not only a soothing activity for him, but it is also something that helps him maintain his focus. Now, other children, they may not desire to make eye contact. And sometimes that is because it's a very intense form of communication. And also, what we say to our students is clothed in an enormous amount of communication information, whether that's facial expressions, eye contact, all of the different sounds that our voice makes, all the different parts of speech that we use in creating sentences, and also body language. That can be overwhelming for them. So sometimes they may just not look at us, but they may be listening intensely for the information that we are saying. And in this case, Aaron's parents and his therapist wanted him to work on eye contact, so we work on that in the piano lesson. Sometimes the work of therapists and music therapists and piano teachers can dovetail, even though we all have different goals. So the therapists and the parents are my best support system, and they're often where I turn first when I need help or when I need more information. Our next routine is going to be Margaret. Margaret was born 3 months premature. She is level 3 on the autism spectrum, blind or nearly blind from birth. She also has developmental delays that affect her intellect, her speech, and also her fine and gross motor skills as well. Because of her blindness, we often do a lot of hand-over-hand teaching with her, so I need to get consent for that and explain what it is. But she's a wonderful person, and at the end of this video, you'll see me ask her what's first in the routine. She goes right back to the beginning, and she tells me what's first. It's a little hard to hear because of her speech delays, but this is Margaret. That sounds like fun.
Yes,
that
now
fun?
play the piano.
Wait a second.
Now wait a second.
We're going to work on your fingers,
Work on your fingers,
work on your hands.
work on your palms,
Then we're going to work on your scales.
scales, jumping.
Yeah, jumping, good. You remembered to jump in your scales. Then we're going to do your pieces.
Pieces.
And then we're going to do duets.
Oh
And
boy.
it's time to go.
Now time to go.
All right, hands
And
down,
the last one
hand
is-
in your lap. What are we going to do first?
Do you want all parents?
Yes.
Might
So
as
you
well-
play your C pattern. So she's a wonderful young lady. And when we were talking about patterns and she said jumping, that is her communicating with me. And that's an amazing thing when she comes out of her shell to communicate with me. And I'm a big believer in listening to everything my students say, because everything they do is communication. Everything their body language does, everything their facial expressions do, it's all communication. And Margaret said jumping, and that is how she described playing a scale and moving from one part of the hand position to the other part of the hand position. So I make a note of that, and I use that whenever we talk about moving the hand position, because that she volunteered to me that that's how she understood it, and it's just a remarkable insight. So that's just an example of a couple of routines. And I know you're all busy teachers. Perhaps you didn't have time to write the routine. Perhaps the paper fell behind the piano. Perhaps we're a little bit scatterbrained sometimes. Don't worry. Just verbally tell them the routine, and then they have a real gift and a talent for lists, routines, and schedules. If you forget what's coming next in the lesson, just say what's next. They'll tell you what's next almost every time, or they'll do what's next if they can't verbally tell you what's next. So that's just an example of a routine. Now let's take a look at some actual teaching. This is Aaron again, and Aaron is learning how to do finger numbers and how to play black keys on the keyboard in this video clip. So Aaron is nonverbal, but he can show me his finger numbers without saying the words. If I call out a finger number, he can show it to me and show me that he understands the concept. And then Aaron also has a lot of behavioral issues, and he likes to noodle around on the keyboard. And so we have to build into his lesson, my turn, your turn, so that he knows when he can play and when he can't play. And in this video clip, I make a big mistake in the routine. and you'll see it at the end, where I've always told him you have to wait until it's your turn. And I keep asking him to play a black key, and he refuses to do it. He shakes his head, and then I finally remember to say, your turn, and he looks at me, makes eye contact, and does exactly what I wanted him to do. So I like to keep this video clip in here simply because it's an example of how things can go wrong if the teacher doesn't remember the teaching routine. So this is Aaron. It'll take me just a second to cue up the video.
Show me your ones. Aaron. Aaron. Show me your ones. Where's your ones? Show me your ones.
Yeah.
Hooray, good job. Show me your twos. There's your 3, 4, 5. Show me your ones. Good job. Wow, your fingers are awesome. Show me your ones. Show me your twos. Show me your threes. Show me your fours. Good. Yeah. Man, you're getting really, really good at those. Yeah. Okay, Aaron. Hands down. Let's work on playing your black keys. Look at your keyboard. Aaron, put your hand down. You're fine. Look. Black key. Look down at your fingers. Black key. Look 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 at your fingers, Aaron. Black key. Look at your fingers. Black key. Black key. Play a black key. Aaron, your turn. Play a black key. Good job. Hands down. Aaron, look at your fingers. Play a black key. Yeah. Oh, come on. You won't even play one black key for me. Please. Play a black key, Aaron. Play a black key. It's your turn. Play a black key. Good job.
So that's just an example of bad teaching where I made a mistake. And the worst part of that was that I could have gotten impatient with Aaron, or I could have chastised him when he was doing exactly what I taught him to do. So he was a real sport in sticking with me and being patient. And at the beginning of the video clip, he wasn't misbehaving. He just needed that extra time to focus, process, and then do the skill that I was asking him to do. So he's a great kid, taught me a lot about teaching. So the next video clip moves on to music reading. And when I'm teaching music reading with my students with autism, especially those who are level 2 or level 3 and need a lot of support, I like to differentiate between, in my studio, what we call music reading and note reading. Note reading is an exercise for my students where they look at the printed music, they decipher the notation, see what the notes are, how they fit together into patterns, understand the meter signature, the key signature, and the harmonic structure and the phrase structure, which is crucial to a deeper understanding of the music. But it's something that we can do away from the keyboard. And my students may not understand the connection between those exercises and what they're doing in their music making, or these may not be meaningful to them, or they may not intellectually be able to approach those exercises. But they can show me understanding through doing. So we work with a process that we just simply call music reading, which is literally see that dot, play that key, touch it for this long, and then do that same process in a series of chains so that they are then creating the music and becoming self-sufficient in knowing how to replicate the music, the printed music in sound at the keyboard. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't understand or learn these deeper subjects in understanding the score. They just do it more through what they are doing with their fingers at the keyboard and playing patterns and working with those patterns in improvisation. So they show me their understanding through doing and not necessarily through intellectual exercises. So our next video is Stanton. Stanton's one of my best friends. But we have to break down the process for Stanton into small bits that we then chain together. So with Stanton, I'll ask his consent, then I'll close the fall board and tell him that we are going to do, first of all, finger numbers, then key names or note names, and then I will give a model, and then he will start to replicate that model. And I also have to do something that I call working in the process, which means that I have to be with Stanton every second of his learning process, helping to guide him, heading off mistakes before they happen, and also helping him manage his anxiety as he's going through this process. Because everything in music study is kind of an unknown, and we need to have that teacher there to support us and to nurture us and to make us feel safe as we're going through our process. So this is Stanton. He's a wonderful young man, and I think you'll really enjoy seeing him at work.
Can we work on as one dawn?
Yeah.
Yeah. No? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, good, good. You had to work on lines 1 and 2. Let's do line 1. Finger numbers. You ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 5, 1, 2, 3, 5, 3, 1, 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4. Again. Ready? Go. 5, 1, 2, 3, 5, 3, 1, 2, 1 and 2, 1, 3, 1 and 4. No names. Ready?
Yeah.
D, A, D, E, F, A, F, E, G and A, F and A, E and A. My turn. Your turn. Getting ready. Get ready. That is correct. Where's your right hand? Where's your right hand?
Oh, come on.
Are you ready? 1, 2, ready, go. Away. Now, F, A. Back to no G. We need F. Very good. And E. And great. Do it again. 1. Are you ready? 1, 2, ready, go. Very good.
So he's just great. He's 25 years old now, and he still comes every Tuesday evening for his lesson. We've become great friends, and he's taught me so much about music making and about teaching, and I think my world would kind of fall apart if he stopped studying. So Stanton, now at this point in his musical career, he is playing pieces out of Level 3 and Level 4 of the Canadian Royal Conservatory of Music Celebration Series. He can also compose a little bit, and then he learns some elementary piano concertos, and he also improvises for the audience. So although his progression has been somewhat what we would consider slow, what he can do at that level has expanded so much horizontally. And so I'm very proud of his progress, and just all of my other students have just grown up knowing him, and he serves as a wonderful role model for the rest of them. So let's move on to an example of how the music counting process is different. So this is Margaret again, who you saw earlier in the routine. Now for Margaret, she, because of her blindness, she is able to approach a little bit of reading the Braille music code and learning in that way. But for Margaret, and with all of her challenges and developmental delays, a traditional counting system like 1, 2, 3, 4, or one of the other counting systems isn't really useful or meaningful for her. So for Margaret, we use what I call directive words. And that is, if we had a quarter, quarter, half note pattern, it wouldn't be 1, 2, 3, 4. It would be play, 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 hold, or touch, 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 hold. Or that could even be finger numbers or key names. In that way, we eliminate the layers of abstraction, and these counting words tell her exactly what to do with her fingers to create sounds that equal rhythm in the music. So as you're watching me with her as she's playing this piece, you'll see a lot of hand over hand teaching because she's blind. And then you'll also hear the directive words. And then you will also hear a lot of me working in the process with her, where I'm with her constantly while she's learning. And Margaret is just a real charmer. She's a wonderful person.
Bell, bashful butterfly.
Can you play it again? Remember to hold your notes, please.
Yes.
Both hands ready.
Your turn.
Are you ready? There, now you're ready.
Now your turn. Butterfly.
So will you remember to hold your notes?
Yes.
All right.
Isn't she wonderful? Again, she's a master teacher, and I've learned so much from her. Now, I know some of you are looking at that video and you're thinking, what kind of a teacher is this? How does this guy teach doctoral performance majors? He has no business teaching college pedagogy majors, because look at this student. Her hand and wrist position are terrible. Her finger position is terrible. Well, Margaret has a lot of fine and gross motor skill delays, and that's the best that she can do. So sometimes I need to be compassionate, and I need to allow her to do what she needs to do physically to make the music happen at the keyboard. And some of these things can improve over a longer period of time, but sometimes that's the best that she can do. Now, Margaret doesn't study with me anymore. She's in her mid-30s, but she never progressed above, I would say, mid-elementary level. But like Stanton, the things that she could do at that level expanded horizontally, and she achieved a lot of self-sufficiency in reading Braille music, and also in playing expressively, and in composing and improvising. So I was always very, very proud of her and the work that she did. So then I always celebrate everything that my students do. Even if they made a mistake or they had an unsuccessful try, they still tried and came out of their comfort zone. And there's always another try, another day, another lesson, another month, another year. And so we always celebrate those trials and all of those successes. We have a lot of parties in my studio. So that is just what a typical lesson might look like in my class, and how I need to reframe my teaching to meet the needs of my students. And again, I think at the bottom of my philosophy is that my student is kind of a sacred presence in the studio. They are master teachers in their own right, and I need to do my best to become a student and to learn what they have to say. And then we just celebrate the human condition and make sure that everybody is part of and not less than. You know, certainly I want my students to learn to read, to learn to count, to play expressively, and to reach a certain level of self-sufficiency. But the music is really the doorway into the person, and that we are connecting with a person, validating them, and helping them to communicate with the world when the world might not communicate back with them in some cases. So thank you very much for being with me today, and thank you very much for letting me share some of your precious time. And I wish you very well in your teaching and also for the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.